Hello guys and welcome to another tutorial. In this case we will be learning how to make a really cool and nice looking mountain with some grass, trees and rocks. So stay tuned and watch the full tutorial. Guys, do you want to join a really nice server? We have tons of different channels. We have effects, modeling, loop dev, compositing. We will have resources for every type of discipline. I also have a Patreon page where you can support me. I have every single file, I have polls, I have even some tools, guidance, so if you are interested, you may have a look. Thank you. So we are at the file. Look how this is mostly done inside Lab. So let's quickly begin. To begin with, I always tell you guys to be as advanced as possible and organized as possible when it has to do with the layout. I usually do everything with scene, camera, lights, render, the background, the foreground, and the midground. Then I created a quick camera. In this case, what I ended up doing is to grab the two cameras I have, the camera 1, the camera 2. What's the thing that I'm doing? In this case, I decided to make it over here. So I grabbed the second camera, which is this one, and I did like a small animation forwards. Of course, I had to have like a mountain first, so I quickly done. This is not going to be done here, but what I did is to quickly create like a mountain where I needed it, and I added this animation. This is just as a placeholder. Then I just copy and pasted everything inside Lobs. I don't know why I did that. It's not quite the correct method. In another world, I would just have created the camera here, but I started in Sops. So other than that, everything looks quite nice. And then I have the same setup over here, which is the mountain. As you can see, it's exactly the same mountain, exactly the same animation. And I place everything inside scene camera. When I dive in, what I did is to actually create a height fill. You can see, and I can also visualize this with my camera. I'm going to just do the following so we can see a little bit better, split in top and bottom. So this is where we have the camera. Over here is like this small point. Then with a height fill, I added a little bit of noise. This is height fill noise, nothing changed. The distortion, a little bit, and then I also did a mask by feature to mask the high slopes and a blur on the mask. Blur the mask, that's the only thing. Then I did the same thing over here. I could just have used done the following, but I decided if I want to have any different change, I would just have to make another node. Then I also blurred it and I inverted it right here in order to, well, in fact, these two guys are not necessary. It's like literally the same. But what I'm doing here is to actually smooth out this section of the ones that are very, very red. I just smooth it out, as you can see. Then I'm creating another mask by feature with another blur. And I'm converting this and promoting this to primitives. This is useful because I can actually see it over here. I have it on my actual geometry, all that I need. That's how it is. This is the Pizola frustrum. I explained this several times on another video, but I'm going to hop in real quick. Basically, I'm grabbing a camera. As you can see what this is doing. Oops, I disconnected it. I'm grabbing the static camera, which is the camera 1, to create a frustrum. As you can see, it's actually killing everything. So the thing that it's doing is here at the top and creating a box. If I watch it from top to bottom, where it is, there we go. It's on negative set, positive X, and grouping the front which is going positive set, the back is, well, negative set. I'm promoting this, the back to primitives. Sorry, I'm promoting it to points, everything to points. And then this is the padding, the scale is the padding. And what I'm doing is to just getting the, basically I can enlarge the back and the front. You can see this is what I'm doing. But the quick part is, I mean, the good part is on the point bob, where I'm actually creating the frustum, which is from NDC, and connected the points to NDC and the camera to the camera and outputting the points. This will create a cool frustum. So if I were to change this clip, let's just visualize this, it will just increase in size right here. So that's the only thing I'm doing. Of course, if you get into the Patreon for this file, you will get every single HDA I'm using. And then we will see there are two methods. This is very important. I think this is the most important part of the whole process. Let's go to the camera. So you will see we have a remesh. This remesh is extremely useful for our topology. As you can see, I have it all linked. If I'm going to just show, it's linked to the one on the left, but it doesn't matter. So what I'm doing is to remeshing based on the camera and creating more polygons for a displacement. What I'm also doing is that I do have some rough spots here and there with the displacement. So I want these normals to be as soft as possible with the position and the normal. Then I'm recalculating it again just to visualize it a little bit better. This is just optional, but it's not so optional after you blur it. I'm blurring it just a little bit again. The points should change, but not that much. They are moving a little bit over here. And then I'm using the triplanar displays with a simple adaptation. This node is extremely good to create fast displacement real quick. So as you can see, it's creating some rough edges here and there. This is because of how it's subdivided and the strength. So the best way would be to do it iteratively. But I want to show you what's the difference. I created the texture I placed a texture from Megascans. The texture scale is set to 0.06 and displacement to 15. And then I used a mask. That's why I saved the mask over here. The way I did it is basically, let me just show you real quick. There we go. I'm just adding displacement where I need displacement. So it's over here. If I were to change this to 30, see, displacement goes away. And if I press it to 0, even the floor will have displacement. So that's what I did, using the mask as a displacement. And then using normals again. It's kind of okay. If I look at it from the camera, you will see some places are very good, but some places are very wrong in terms of polygon density. So this method works, but I want to make it work a little bit more. So what I did is to put everything inside a feedback loop. You just press feedback and you place everything inside here. You can see everything is set to 3 iterations. Look at this. Let's watch this real close. This is the previous method. This is exactly the same method. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. See, there's a little bit more. It's more delicate. Then the result is a little bit more delicate in some places. For example, all of this on the edges is detail that you wouldn't be able to recover without this method. See how everything is a little bit more rough? Well, this just fixes it. So what's happening here is exactly the same, but I'm multiplying. And first of all, I'm dividing all of this by the iterations in order for me to have exactly the same values after X amount of iterations. So you will see that if I press 1, this is the same result as this one. And let's watch what happens after I start adding it. 2, it remeshes at the second iteration. 3, it makes it a little bit better. So 3 is more than enough, and this is the method you want to follow. I'm caching this, the disk. It's not dependent on time, it's on the job. For job you had to set the project to where you're working. I did this because I needed to send it to the farm in order to render properly. And that's how I did for the mountain. So let's continue with this section. What I also did here is to save it as an alembic, so I could just work around with this, which is pretty cool. Then, okay, so this is quite complex if you don't know anything about Solaris, but what's going on here is the following. I saved this as a USD. You can see this is the mountain geometry, and the version 1 is the whole geometry. Then in layer breaking, what does it mean? It basically means that I am going to save a mountain, which in this case, as you can see, it's saving to scene, background, geo, os, geo, which is basically mountain, geo here, is the asset, the mountain. So it's going to be saved here. It doesn't matter, I'm just saving it. And then what I'm also doing is to create a material. As you can see, the material is assigned next to it inside mountain, but next to the geometry. This is how assets are usually made in USD. And then with this layer break, as you can see, everything gets saved except for the geometry. So this is because of the layer break. I'm not permitting the geometry to get saved. Only what's under layer break. Everything above is not saved. But then with a sublayer, I can mix them both again together. Okay? I'm mixing them. This is like a mix or something like that. And they will be linked again. So that way I can work with the geometry separately from the material. This is extremely useful if you're working with departments and one department handles geometry and another handles materials. That way you don't need to work on the same file. And also working with this is way less expensive than working with two things at the same time. Plus you're just saving a very small file, which is material, just 9 kilobytes. So let's go into the material. How was this done? Let's just, for a quick moment, geometry, render settings, and let's just plug this in here and reduce the dicing to 0. Otherwise, we will be in problems. So let's go to CPU. It will start rendering without displacement. And this is how it looks. Let's just real quick add a little bit of lights and clouds. So this is what I had. What I have, in fact, without displacement. So the material will look a little bit complex, but in fact, it's not as complex as it appears. This is what I did. I ended up choosing, first of all, an albedo. This albedo is for one of the rocks over here. We can visualize it if we just place it over here. I think I did wrong. Wait a second. There we go. So I selected a rock texture. See, this is just a rock texture with a different color correction based on a fractal. If I increase this, you will see there is a fractal, which basically I'm merging two different types of colors to have some color variety. I'm separating the colors because I don't know why this is sent to with an alpha, which I don't really like. I would like to have another option in order for this to be vector 3, but then again, it's not. So I found that it's better to just separate it. This is a texture which I had to transform from utility linear sRGB to ACCG. This is something that has to do with color correction. It changes the color a little bit, as you can see, and I found that it was closer by transforming it again. With albedo is a little bit complex because it depends where you get the images, how you need to transform them. If it's on 16 bits, which I think they are, you need to change it from linear to ACCG, but sometimes you can use an external software like Pyco, Pyco, to transform them beforehand. I chose to do it like this. Then we are adding more noises to add a little bit more color variation. Let me just show you real quick how this noises is. It's just one noise with this scale on fractal and another one. Basically, I'm creating like these stripes where then with a simple extreme color variation, I can add brown tones, and I don't know if we can see it, but they are somewhere over there. And the same thing goes for something which is greenish. So it adds, for example, here, I don't know if it's visible, but there are some quite some nice color variations. So let's go to the greens. Well, I don't know how to show you, but it is there. In fact, well, it is. There's some green here, and there's somewhere over there some brownish new tones. This is very subtle, but it's just a method. You could use it for whatever you want. And right here at the bottom, what I have is another texture. In this case, it is, oops. In this case, it is for the grass. As you can see, the same method, the same unified noise. This is just another texture for the grass. And I'm mixing both things to get this result. How I'm mixing them? Well, I'm mixing them with a simple ramp based on the mask, which I have. I added a little power, otherwise it would be too sharp. And then I added a little mask where I can just blend as I like the result. Say more grass, or the other way around, more mountain. So that's for the albedo. There's nothing else. You will see I have some things linked. For example, the tree planner for the grass is merged with this one. I'm just setting this to raw. All the things that I have to do with displacement are set to raw. And as you can see, I didn't use any roughness anywhere. That's not correct, guys. You should try to always use the roughness, but I just didn't want it. I just want this to look easy and fast. So how do the displacement look? Oh no, the displacements look like this. This is one, which is basically a displacement. I'm just grabbing one of the colors. This is another one. This is just a lava texture. This is the rough rock, which I remapped it because it was negative. In this case, I also remapped it over here. They're remapped because they go into negative values and also positive values. And then I'm multiplying this a little bit because then I'm going to be merging them to the minimum. So we have two textures merged on top of each other. So I'm going to try real quick to just add a little bit of displacement. There we go. This is the displacement we get. Basically, we have two things. What I like to do is one being bigger than the other one. So this one is the low frequency noise I would think of. So if I were to ignore this mix and go with the high frequency, we would only be getting high frequency noise. This is the high frequency noise, and the low frequency noise looks like this. See, we have something over here. Oh, wait, sorry, my bad. Mistake. Sorry, I needed to change this instead. So this is the high frequency displays. Okay, maybe not. Oh, my bad. I should have done displacement. So let's connect this one over here. And the displacement will be getting this one. So this is the low frequency noise. This is the high frequency noise. And the mixture of both of them looks something like this. Then again, I'm also controlling this with another value, which is 5. So it will be 5 times stronger. But there is a lot of displacement here. We could just work with the albedo as for now. And this is the displacement for the rock. As you can see, I'm using a texture to separate what's the grass from what's not. So when I go into here, the grass won't be noticeable because we are going to be having another displacement for the grass, which is very minimum. So now you can see that I have displacement on the rocks, displacement a little bit on the grass, but other than that, everything looks quite nice. And then I'm mixing with another displacement, if I'm not wrong, which are a little bit more of rock details, but pretty much everywhere. Here we go. It's just a little bit of detail, but it's mostly just the one on the top. So this is what I ended up doing, mixing a little bit of displacement with that looks something like this. So I have the displacement albedo, as you can see, it's like a texture whose position is very shrinked on the vertical axis, so I can have these lines. Then I'm remapping this to whatever value I need, make it negative and positive, and then I'm multiplying these with a mask. This mask, I think, is bugged a little bit. Let me just reload this. So basically, I should only be having values over here. Oh, I see. So here, what I'm doing is multiplying everything whose sloped is bigger than. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. As you can see, I'm only having those lines extremely over here, which are going to be multiplying our displacements later on. And then when I connect the final displacement again, we will see that we will have some lines on the rock over here. Yeah, there's something to be seen. Let me just recalculate this real quick. You will be able to notice there are some lines here, also some lines over here. Very nice. So that's what's all about the materialization. So once we have this, we can save the cache again, and don't worry guys, we're not going to be saving the same geo, we're saving the path to both things. So this file will be extremely small. So continuing with this is the displacement dicing I chose for the render. 1.5 is going to be quite high. So in my machine, it takes like 45 seconds to calculate this per frame. And then we started with the scatters. This is when things get a little bit fun, when we can just start adding a lot of geometry, as you can see. So let's go one by one, because these methods are very similar, yet a little bit different. So these are just some trees from max trees, lower to 0.1. This is a really nice tree. You can see, super cool. And if we were to actually get to know how many groups this has, you can see that it has some 4 primitive attributes, and on the groups and the path I have some materials, which I just copy and pasted them to create the materials, because I had to create this again in Material X. So this is my tree. I had this set like follows, like the name which I want and the geo, and I'm using exactly the same method of asset, geometry, material. So what I did here is to just create the materials, but well, this is exactly the same. If you have it, I'm not assigning to anything. And I created some materials. I created 3. These materials are basically these groups, and these groups are get from import data, the subset groups, because it comes with subset groups. If not, you need to do it like this to get these groups over here. Then again, with the material library, I'm creating the materials, which are just getting the masks and coloring them a little bit. So as you can see, I have something which is random. This is a variable that I'm getting from the scatter to create some variation. So let's link this and see what happens. So this is the material. Let's just go into CPU. This is how it looks. And what I'm doing is just linking all the materials to where they belong. So with the material linker, you can click on the material, double click, and create an expression. In this case, I drag and drop this over here, and I just got and added this little asterisk before the word. So everything that has this will be targeted. That means that it doesn't matter where it's on the hierarchy, it will get the material. I did the same thing for the 3 of them. And as you can see, it's super easy because they are named after the same thing. Leaf with leaf, petiole with petiole, and trunk with trunk. So let's have a look at how this looks after the scatter, in fact. So this is the trees. This is how the trees look. I'm going to explain how the scatter is done in a minute. So let's see real quick with a simple tree. And let's go into Karma XPU to make it faster. Just kidding, let's go into CPU. So let's create a small render region so it's faster and let's not show what else. So let's go one by one. The leaf, it's just the albedo connected to a color correction, and I decided to do whatever I wanted to make it a little bit more unsaturated with a different hue correction. Then I have this random. In this case, it's a random number which I made from anything from 0 to 1 based on the point which is scattered. This will add a little color on top of it. So if I add this a little more, it will basically get the first color, which is 0, because right now the number is 0. I don't know what number I had before. There we go. But it will add a little bit color variation based on 0 to 1. This is the ramp it's going to choose, and it's going to be adding it. Then I'm also adding a little bit of subsurface. The base is set to 1. The subsurface is set to 0.714. This will add a little bit of like transmission, or, well, not transmission, but subsurface. It's going to be like translucent a little bit. Otherwise, it's going to be looking like this, which I don't really like. It's super non-translucent. I want it to be a little bit translucent because they are very thin, and also thin walls is what I chose because they are actually a very thin geometry. And then again, this is the roughness, which is the glossiness, but it's inverted. I could just delete this and I would have, well, 0 to 1. And in this case, this is the opacity. If I delete this, I'm going to have the geometry without opacity. This is like a cutout. And the normals is just a normal map. I did the same for the petiole, but without changing the colors. It's exactly the same thing for the trunk as for the petioles. The petioles are these violet things. I didn't do anything for them. And how is the scatter working? Well, let's go into GL, let's create render region, and let's hop in. So let me just show you real quick what happens here. As you can see, there's a little bit color variation, but I'm going to make it a little bit more extreme over here to show you what happens. See, I have color variation. That's what I wanted to show you. But basically what's going on here is that I'm getting the mountain. I'm getting this mountain and remapping this mask. I can select where the trees appear and disappear. I'm masking on top of it with a noise to multiply and another ramp, so I'm creating more variation. And I'm painting where I want. I could place it anywhere. I'm painting on top of it where I want the trees to start. I didn't do anything else because I just random is okay for me. And then this scatter and align is where I control how many trees I want over here with what radius from 0.8 to 1.4, and the orientation, like the rotation, anything else, and the random. Without the random, there's no color variation. So that's what I decided to do over here. For the rocks, the method is a little bit different. I grabbed some USD rocks that I had. They're very small. They're over here. Oh, sorry, this is the scene camera. There we go. So this is just a rock. There's another rock over here. You can see they're just the asset. And with the collection, I'm selecting both assets and setting them to rock collection. With an edit material, what I'm doing is to basically correct the materials a little bit. So they are way less saturated. You can see I just unsaturated them. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm scattering rocks. You can see I have way more rocks. And this is a little bit different. I just created this, the remap, the mask, the noise, the mask again for the paint, scatter and align. And you will see that I have a pick. This pick is to push the rocks a little bit forwards. As you can see, these are just one side, and this is another rock variation I did. The piece scale is very nice because I can control how many big pieces I have, how many small pieces I have. and the size of them. And then this is for a noise and this is for a randomizer. You can see I have just a little bit, which are going to be very big. Combining both things together ends up in a result which works pretty good in my opinion. And I created these two sections, so these 2 point sets, one being this one, another one being this one, so I can mess around with both of them. If I were to show you this is what I get. Well, they are black, so you're not going to be seeing anything unless I change this to gray. There we go. These are the rocks. And everything meshed together looks something like this. Rocks, trees, and grass. So for the grass, you would think, well, it's exactly the same thing. Creating the asset, materializing exactly the same as the tree, linking them. And on side here, it's a little bit bigger, but also it's the same thing. Is, well, one set of points for the grass, another one for general grass, and another one for just the places I wanted to paint grass on top, which is the front. So you can see this one is the front. I'm just basically painting where I want grass to appear, and I didn't change anything. It's just orientation, density, changing the P scale with multiplication, adding random for the color variation, because this has inside here the same, it's exactly the same. As you can see, it's the same material. And all of this has the scatter saved here. And the good thing about this is that since I'm saving everything into different files, and then I'm saving the master, which are the 3, if I then just update one of these on top, it will magically update the one at the bottom. That's a really nice, cool trick, and it's super fast to read. Combining both things together, this is what I get. And I have the HDRI, which is basically an HDRI with set LP tag to $alls in case I want light groups. And the HDRI to shadows, the only thing I did is to grab another cloudy environment. Let me just show you real quick that this set to 0. Let's load this. Without this and without light bumps, it looks quite dark. So I added another one, which will increase the shadow light over here. Well, it's not doing anything. Okay, it is. But I can change how the shadows look a little bit. And I'm using 2 HDRIs, one to fill and another one to work for the shadows. In this case, the shadows work really good for the leaves right here. And then I'm adding clouds. The clouds are just a grid with an alpha, with a copied points. I mean, copy and transform, and another transform, which is not doing anything. And this will create shadows, which can be moved real quick. Let's say I want to change this to somewhere over there. I change the shadows real quick, way faster than a volume. And then I'm saving these lights. Basically, I'm saving everything here with the link to here, the link to here. So what I'm only saving is this group over here, these 4 or 5 nodes. And then I'm going to set this to OpenGL and getting the camera. I think my PC is dying somehow. There we go. I get the camera with animation, and I'm saving the camera as USD. The whole animation is going to be saving the animation of this and the link to this. So don't worry, I'm not saving the whole thing. And the camera render settings are all set to path traced. I'm getting some position, depth, normal, the cryptomates, nothing particularly about that. And setting limits to the subsurface, everything. And camera effects, I'm using motion blur for the camera movement, which is just minimum, so it doesn't matter. And I'm sending the render. In this case, I'm just sending this to my farm, but you could just use this one and render to disk with a specific frame range. And that's the whole process for Houdini. As for Nuke, this is how it looks. Let me show you how it looked before. So before, after. It's quite nice. I did a little bit of fog over here, as you can see. Some chromatic aberration, some noise. I lifted the blacks a little bit. I added a really nice background. And this is super easy. So let me show you. First of all, I'm getting the background. This is ACSDG, so I'm basically using composite linear ACSDG. Then I'm getting some assets, which I'm basically just creating a rotor, reformatting it, inverting it. This is the alpha. I'm just masking this in the borders. I'm shuffling this to get the alpha, same as the red. I'm actually having this alpha. So now that I have everything prepared, I did two things. First of all, what I wanted to do is to see how this looks in 3D. So this is how it looks with the compositing. So I'm going to send you this node, which is from a tutorial I found online, but it's basically just a code that you have to copy and paste. I'm going to leave it on the comments. So all the credits are going to be on the description. I got my camera, which is the camera of the scene, which moves. So these points will move, and this is just to get a reference. Basically, this is what I'm getting. I'm also transforming it a little bit lower because I'm just going to be using the depth data for what? To get these results. This is what I'm doing. I'm basically transforming it downwards 2 points, and you will see why in a moment. I'm creating this postage stamp, adding a little bit color correction. I'm placing them over here in front of the camera. So I'm placing them over here, and also placing some over here, which is going to be at the back of the mountain. This is just me creating a card with, apparently nothing for the color for this. I think I'm not using anything of this, which looks nice regardless. Yeah, it just looks nice. I'm going to just delete this. You don't need anything of this. It's just the card with a little bit of texturing to make it softer. There we go. And then I'm using the same thing, but in this case, I'm adding a little bit of rotor inside here, because in order to get this, the edges are a little bit rough. So this rod over here is going to help me to basically make a fall off over here. You can see, otherwise it was super hard and I didn't want this to be like that. So it's just a rotor, which I can change as I pleased. This is the scene where you connect all the elements, all these cards, which are over there. This is kind of render with the camera. And there's not much to it. This is just an example, which I did with holdout. And then I'm adding it all again with a simple merge over. So this, I'm also blurring it a little bit, because when you add this with deep data, which I'm not using, I'm like mixing depth to deep, it will add these rough spots when they are like occluded. And also this deep transform is helping me with the borders. But let's go from the beginning. I added this read. This is a 4K cloud HDRI, which I'm going to be changing for a 8K because I need more resolution. I changed the exposure, the color. I basically unsaturated it a little bit, and I placed them on a sphere. So we have everything inside our camera. I'm transforming it a little bit, but as you can see, the resolution is quite low, so I would like to have more resolution. And then I'm placing this into the scaling render, which looks something like this. I'm merging it with an empty constant set to Full HD, which is the same format of my render. Then I'm merging this with the actual render, which is the sky. This is a postage stamp. I'm just connecting both. I'm hiding the input. And the same thing for this. That's why I have everything connected over there. And what I'm doing is to just using a stencil for this, and basically using the alpha of the postage stamp of the render to stencil it out. And I'm blurring over here and multiplying the merge between both of these to create like a border. I'm unpermuting this, create like a good color correction. This is what I'm doing. This I'm adding a little bit more color correction over here. There's nothing super complex about this. And I'm plusing them together. And you can see, hey, but I have everything here. Yeah, because the alpha is not multiplied yet. What I did here is to the output only use RGB. So ignore the alpha from this guy. So I'm only using this alpha. Otherwise, if I were to place this RGB I would have both alphas together, which is wrong. And if I premul this again, this is what I'm saving. So I can control, for example, this to create more detail. Or well, I could just have another multiply and do it over here for this one again. So these are like controls. And then I'm merging this one on top of the other one, the sky with this color fringe, and I'm copying the alpha. Oops, otherwise I won't have any alpha. So I'm copying the alpha. And what I'm doing is to add a little bit edge blur to blend things a little bit nicer. And then I'm just shuffling another alpha again, which everything is white. Going forwards, I'm just merging the fog. And the fog actually uses this very blur with color correction and multiply on top of it. This way I'm going to get like color from the actual footage. See the sky and see the ground. Merging both of these. This is the difference I'm getting. This is just a cool trick. And I'm a little bit color correction, more color correction, messing around with the gain. A transform, this is for the, I'm basically transforming one of the channels, which is the red. I'm scaling it, and with a lens distortion, I'm adding some lens distortion. I'm distorting my actual image and adding more color correction on top of it for the final grade, which I liked. And as vignette, this is the vignette I'm adding for the outer edges, and one for the overlay. So it pops a lot more, as you can see. And then I'm adding some grain on top of it. And that's the whole process, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. Anyways, if you want to comment anything, you need any kind of help or whatever, please leave a comment down below. Likes and subscribe. See ya.